Hey guys, and welcome to Transform Your Business Thursday. I'm Nikki Gangemi, and today we're talking about working smarter and not harder. And I know you've heard this before. I've heard it myself. I can say that trying to work smarter and not harder is not the way to do it. At least for myself, I can speak that when I have made it a point to not work harder and I try so hard to work smarter, I always end up perpetuating the same cycle of working harder, and it's just the same thing, different day, and little to no results. So I have found a way to actually work smarter and do it from a place that feels easy. Because that's what we want. We don't want to keep making things hard. And for some of us, that comes naturally. Let me know if it comes naturally to you that you just make things hard for yourself. And there's no judgment here. I mean, we just either do it or we don't do it. And a lot of times it's just a habit. You know, I know for myself, I have just always worked very hard, and that started in school. Hey Michelle, thanks for being on. We're talking about working hard and how sometimes that's just a habit. Like that's just been instilled in you from grade school. And I started out in Catholic school, so it was all about, being proper, and, I would sit there with my hands folded because I wanted to be a good girl and I didn't want the nun to come around and smack me on the back of my hand with a ruler. They actually did that back then, so I might be dating myself, and they don't do that anymore, but these are things that they're so ingrained in you, it becomes a habit. So now, we fast forward and we're in our 30s and 40s and 50s and, whatever age, but when you've been programmed a certain way for so many years and you try to just say that you're going to change that just like this and think you're going to do it, we end up disappointing ourselves. So there is an easier way. But it does start with acknowledging. It starts with knowing yourself and your habitual ways of being. So if you are someone who tends to work harder, then the first thing you could do is just notice that. And then we're going to talk about, in a couple of minutes, ways that you could work smarter. So let me know if you're one of those people, who just, works hard. And for some people, I notice there's a belief there that if I work harder, then maybe I'll make more money. Or if I do a good job and I work harder, like it's almost like that's the path for putting out a great product. Sometimes we might not think that we can actually put out a service or a product that is really phenomenal, but it came easy to us. And what if it did? What if it could? And I know that it could because I've experienced it. But if we believe, deep down that, no pain, no gain, that's a common one, then that's how come we keep staying in that vicious cycle and we keep working hard because it's just something we've always done, and there's always a payoff to everything that we do. Otherwise we wouldn't do it, right? We wouldn't do something that hurts us. So more on that, but for those of you who don't know me, I'm Nikki Gangemi, and I help online coaches shift their identity to thriving entrepreneurs so they can make more money and impact doing what they love. Michelle, yep, work harder sounds familiar. I know, and there's something really big. Now, it takes a lot of courage to do this, so I always give anybody who does this a pat on the back, but just to admit it, just to acknowledge it, that that's something that I do, and then not berate yourself, not judge or put yourself down, and just see it as, well, I just do that because it's something I've always done. And I've learned that that's the way you do things. But you can learn another way. There's things we can do. I have found now that it doesn't help me to force myself to do certain tasks and to just push through, because it only leads to things taking a lot longer than they probably should take, and it leads to being frustrated. working way too many hours, burnt out? And then do you actually get the results that you want? You know, does it actually lead to the sales, to the clients? Not always, right? So we want to change that formula, that you don't have to actually work harder, but just recognize that you might be doing it because it's a habit, because it's what you've learned. And then knowing that you have a chance to change that and to start working from a different mindset. So one of the things that you could do, now I'm sure you've all done this, is walk away. One thing that I noticed, I started noticing when I start a task, maybe it's content creation, let's say, maybe it's writing my weekly blog. And if I notice that I'm stuck and it's been 15 minutes or more, stop. And I'm the kind of person that doesn't want to, because it's a habit for me to push through. I've got to remind myself, no longer am I working that way. I am choosing to stop and walking away, because maybe I just need a brain break. And maybe after I make myself something to eat, or make a cup of tea, or sit and read a few pages from a book. Right now I'm reading The Power of the Subconscious Mind by Joseph Murphy for the second time. I highly recommend this book. But even just reading a few pages from a book that you love, sometimes that's all you need. Just to, like I said, give your brain a break, and to even re-energize yourself. So that's one thing that you can do, is take that break. I know for a lot of people, myself included, getting outside, going for a walk in the park or something like that, is something that just opens up those creative pathways. Because when we're experiencing resistance and we're pushing through something, and forcing ourselves to either come to the solution or finish something or figure something out or get clarity, we never get clarity from that space. It's almost like you just cut off any kind of creative flow that you might have. I think of a hose, a water hose, and when you turn it on, the water easily runs through the hose, right? But when we get into that frustration and that aggravation, and we're focused on, like, I don't know why I can't do this, I don't know what's wrong, what am I missing? It's like pinching that hose. It's like either stepping on it with your foot or squeezing it. And when you do that, what happens? The water can't easily flow through. So when we get into that state of mind, we cut off our creative juices. So the answer, or the solution that we're looking for, we just don't have access to it from that feeling that we're in. And that's why, giving yourself a time and 15 minutes and I'm going to stop, that would be something good to do. I know it actually reminds me of Mel Robbins, who talks about, it's a little different, but she talks about the 5-second rule, and that's to get motivated to start and do something for just 5 seconds. And if you can start and commit to doing 5 seconds, you likely will do longer. And so even that, I use the 15-minute rule. And that is almost the same thing, and it can work both ways. It could be just getting started for 15 minutes and committing to that, and then you'll notice that you'll likely keep doing, moving in that direction and feeling good about it. But the same thing for when you realize that you're getting stuck or you're spiraling out, use the 15-minute rule and just say, you know what, it's been 15 minutes, spinning wheels, this is where I'm gonna stop. And I'm going to take a much needed brain break. And wherever that is for you, you can always come back to what you were doing. The thing is, we want to break the cycle. We want to recognize that if I'm in the cycle of I've got to work harder, and no pain, no gain, we just keep perpetuating that. And if it's not something that feels good and it's something you want to change, then you've got to make the conscious decision that I'm going to change this. And one thing that you can do is just use that 15-minute. And I'm going to remove the word rule, because we don't need any more rules, right? Especially if you're naturally a rule follower like me, and that's something you want to break away from. We're going to call it something completely, a 15-minute suggestion. How's that? Maybe that feels a little bit better. work in 15-minute, increments. Of course, if you're in the flow and you're feeling good, you keep going with it. But it's when you're stuck and you notice that it's hard, that's a good time to stop, disconnect and see how can I get re-energized, because you can create something pretty phenomenal in a short amount of time. It's when you're in flow. Have you ever noticed that when things just come easy? Have you ever sat down and you wrote something, whether it was your blog or whatever, and this amazing, writing just poured out of you so quickly, and it's because you're in the flow. So I hope that was helpful. One thing I do want to add is when you notice that you're pushing against the grain and you're trying to get an outcome and it's not happening for you, one thing you could do is just stop and identify, what am I feeling? And state what the feeling is. I'm having a feeling of irritation right now. And notice I'm not saying I'm irritated, because we never want to own the emotion. We are not the emotion. You're just having a feeling of irritation in that moment or frustration. You're removed from it. You are not defining yourself as that emotion, but just saying, I'm having a feeling of irritation right now. And what is it that I want to feel? Well, I want to feel ease, or I want to feel peace, or whatever the feeling is. And then the third thing to do is to ask yourself, what thought would lead to that feeling? So what's a thought I can have right now that would lead me to feeling ease, or would lead me to feeling peace? And then say that thought out loud. I said this on the last live, I think it was, that we speak our lives into existence. So rather than telling the story that nothing's working and I just keep putting in all this time and effort, scratch that story, throw it out the window, and let's start telling a new story, the story that we want to tell, and start speaking that into existence. And you're going to notice pretty quickly that things start changing. And I just want to say that this stuff is not easy to do, especially if you're hardwired for working hard and that's just something you've always done and that's very much ingrained in you. But it is a simple shift. So it is simple, it's not easy, and it's going to require consistency on your part, and just daily, multiple times each day, making that conscious decision, that conscious choice that you're going to choose to do things differently because you want to feel ease, you want to feel peace or happiness or whatever the feeling is. And I'm going to choose thoughts that are in alignment with that feeling. And then you'll start to notice that you will be working smarter, because you're going to be working when you're in flow and when it's best for you, and being mindful and aware of when that is for you. When is your best time of day to work? Is it first thing in the morning? Some people work better in the evening hours or later on at night. But knowing when you're at your best mentally, and then optimizing on those times of days or those pockets of times. And that is one way that you can start working smarter. And the other way is to take those much needed breaks when you need them and not muscling through something. I can't tell you how many times that I have muscled through something, and even though at 11 o'clock at night I did not complete nearly what I wanted to complete, I still felt good, because I was feeding the belief, no pain, no gain. And as long as I put myself through the ringer, I did a good job, because that's the story. And that's the payoff. I was talking about a payoff earlier in this video, that if that's the belief, the payoff is that you keep feeding that belief. So that's another thing in transforming your beliefs, is becoming aware and knowing what those are, and then, taking yourself through the process. It's something that I teach my clients, but taking yourself through the process of totally transforming those beliefs and choosing a new set that you want to believe, and then coming up with the thoughts that support that belief and taking those actions that are in alignment. So I don't want to give you too much, but start with that. Start with working in these 15-minute suggested times where if you're on a roll, go for it, and if you're not, stop and take that break. Try to get back into that state of flow, because that's where you're going to create your best work from, when you're in the zone, so to speak. So thanks for tuning in. Any questions, comments, post them below. If you're watching this on the replay, #replay, and on YouTube, please subscribe to my YouTube channel. And thanks so much, you guys. Love you. Have a great day. Bye for now.